Terry, you made it. Just slightly soaked.
The seat taken.
No,
Go for it.
but it might have been dripped on.
That's all right.
Lovely evening.
Hello.
Stacia?
Where's Stacia?
I'm so glad to see girls.
I know, good to see you.
I'm so glad.
I know, me too.
I'm a little uncomfortable with it. I saw the new thing from Felicia. I'm like, why all these women, Felicia?
Yeah.
This is a little unsettling.
What's that mean?
Is it a reversal of the way the things are supposed to be here?
I'm like, wait, this is looking good.
Girl power.
I was a little anxious
Okay.
coming into the lightning since last Saturday. We had lightning storm. We had 2 houses.
Oh, real. 2 houses hit with it?
They're next door to each other.
Somebody's knocking the window.
Oh.
Or
There's a full house here.
Yeah.
I need a bigger room.
Sell tickets.
What's that? Yeah, that's right. We're gonna start charging entry here, so.
Usually 1 month.
Hey, John, how are you? Hey, look at this. Look at all these
You all the
people.
time.
Yeah, right.
You think we're gonna have quorum tonight?
I think we got a quorum. Good. What are we gonna get done today, guys? So we finally got a quorum. It's like those emergency sessions of Congress where we just, sign everything. Hey, we're on the clock. The light is red, so, can I get a motion to call this meeting to order? I guess I can do it. I'll motion it. All right, I'll second it. All right. We'll call this motion to order. Let's start with the roll call. We're in good shape. This is the most people I've ever seen here, actually, so this is
Yeah.
good.
5 years, it's most
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. We're really flexing, I think, today. So that's good. Kaylin, we'll make sure. So Kaylin is our secretary, so I can help with names, but it's probably just as good a time as any to do just really quick names. So Terry Coddington, he's the bicycle coordinator. Lori Ross, a boomerang, so she's back. She
A
left.
boomerang.
She left, but she just couldn't. The fellowship, the good cheer. She just couldn't resist.
Good stuff presented the
There's something
last
missing.
meeting of the year, and I was like, dang it.
Missing stuff was missing in her life. Kaylin Camp, Stacia Adams, Jeremy Chrysler, AG Register, Adina White, Keith Duncan, John Henderson, Carol Delaney with a capital L.
Yes.
In Delaney, not in Carol.
Like, thank you.
So we got everybody there. I think so. We've got a quorum, which is exciting. So we've got, what do we have here? 8, we've got 10 of 11. Pruitt's the only one that's missing right now.
I
So
talked to him, he was 3 hours away, driving back from meetings.
he's stuck. So he was worried about that. But this is good. I'm really excited to see as many people, especially considering the conditions, which are perfect for biking and pedestrianing. So. So we're good. Kaylin put together the minutes. I sent those out in the invite. The new folks didn't get a chance to review those minutes. But did anybody see anything that they wanted to adjust on it? Okay, I'll send out the minutes to you guys so that you've got them to the newbies. Can I get a motion to approve previous minutes?
Yep.
Second. All right. All those in favor? All right, perfect. Minutes are approved. First old business I had, which was really the change to the bylaws. So this has been, we've gone back and forth a couple of different times to consolidated our bylaws to basically funnel activities that used to be involved with like more people in the city. So we used to have like 7 or 8 like ex officio members from various like staff members in the city. That's gotten kind of collapsed into the bicycle coordinator role, which is Terry. We'd gone back and said, hey, we would like to be able to request the, let's say somebody from the street department or somebody from Parks and Rec, et cetera, via, virtual, so not require attendance, but request. And the city is doing further review of bylaws to try to consolidate across the board. So I just told them we were going to shelve any discussion of bylaws until like we got the final version of it. So
Yeah, they're just trying to make sure it's consistent across
all the boards. Yeah. So that's where we are. So I don't think there's anything to discuss there. We've done some good work in discussing bylaws in the past, but we don't need to do anything today. So so we're good. So I think first new business, this was the second new business, but it didn't make sense to do it second, and so I moved it to the first. So let's start with our new members. I guess we'll start with you, Carol, because you arrived first. So
I get to
tell
go
us about
first.
yourself and how you got here and what you kind of care about.
Okay, hi, everyone, my name is Carol Delaney, and I am a UCA graduate and lived in Little Rock, moved back to Conway. I own my own business, CD Real Estate Group, so I have been in the real estate business for over 17 years. I'm a principal broker and property manager. I am an avid runner and cyclist. I have been doing that for probably 10 to 12 years. I, also taught fitness classes at UCA. I mean, not UCA. Well, yes, I did. UCA and Conway Regional as well, too. So I love being outdoors. And the reason why I decided to pick this particular committee is because a week ago, before I put my nomination in, I was driving past the post office and almost hit a pedestrian who was not, they didn't have any lighting on, and I came back and talked to him and just requested that, hey, you need to it's nighttime if you walk into, because we don't see you, and even my bells and whistles on my car did not pick him up, and then we're, talked, and I'm like, maybe I can offer something on the committee, just things that I see when I'm out riding or walking or, just making, just talking to people, to strangers, to let them know that, you may not see them, and God forbid if I ever hit someone that would just crush me because of the fact that I love to be out and doing those different things. So, and that's the reason why I decided to join, to make a difference and be part of the community that I live in.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice people here.
Yes, thank you.
Adina, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Adina White. I've lived in Conway since 2017. And the reason why I'm not really the poster child for bicycle and pedestrian, but Carol, I was part of a walking running group with her for several years ago. So I did a lot of walking on trails and now go with my family. So, but I realized that I'm learning more and more that I care about walkable communities, and not just for exercise, but for community building and seeing, knowing your town better. And this is kind of a little personal story. I was, sometimes I think about, not today, but I have thought about moving in the past. I need to move somewhere, so I was Googling walkable cities or walkable neighborhoods across the South or something like that. So anyway, I came up, the city of Conway's Oak Street corridor plan came up, and I forgot about that. And then I realized how excited I got about the possibility of making that more walkable. And then I realized, it took me a while to realize that I care about it, and that I care about walkable communities, not just for physical health, but also for a sense of place. I worked for the chamber for 11 years. So I'm really, I understand quality of place. So I think I found a passion area that I didn't realize I had. And I just love seeing people on the trail and talking to people and just getting out there. So
Well, I don't like to talk to people, but I do like to walk.
occasionally talking.
I don't mind talking in this setting.
Right.
So if we see you out, don't say anything.
Strangers, I really don't want to talk to.
You're always walking and talking. But you're talking
Yeah, it's like,
with somebody you're
oh,
really-
sorry. Yeah, I do walk around my neighborhood a lot, and neighbors will come up and be like, hey, Jim. I'm like, not now.
No long conversation.
Which one is your first?
Lori, you're back, but maybe you can.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Adina, tell them where you're from.
Oh, that's right. From the proud Center Ridge resident, Center Ridge, Conway County.
Oh,
We are proud natives.
You got two of you from
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Conway County.
We had no sidewalks, so we were really excited about sidewalks.
Yeah.
Oh, right, or lights,
Yeah.
right.
It's just you're on your own, right? So,
I am glad to be back. I served for a couple of terms, I think, and enjoyed it, but I felt like there for a little bit we were kind of drifting, and things were getting busy in my personal life, and I thought, well, I didn't know what the future was. I'm glad Terry's been hired, and Terry's going to kind of help with all of this, but anyway, I love to ride bikes. I've experienced the best and the worst of the traffic, and love this community, and I love seeing cyclists out there. I love that Donnell Ridge is getting paved. I mean, so many good things. I mean,
It's the only area that I could beat anybody on skinny tires, so I'm not actually happy about it, so I felt like it's my area to sneak past people.
more the cyclists than the pedestrian.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Welcome. I think it's good to have, I would say, more pedestrian focus. I think sometimes we can be a little bike focused, although I do tend to think that bike infrastructure helps pedestrian infrastructure. But no, I think it is good and it's important. And like you say, being able to walk in a community. I sort of, the way I look at it is like, where do people go on vacations, right? They go to cruises, they go to Disney, they go to mountain towns or New York City, or these kinds of things. Like, where do people like think about their fondest years? Oh, it was college. It's like, well, this is like, you just lived in a walkable community. Like, you go on vacation to walkable communities, and like college is neat in part just because it's like you walk around and you can eat and you can visit your friends and you don't need like a lot of that. And I think we kind of take for granted, I think, in the States that like this is a possibility. And I think from my perspective, it's a big opportunity from an economic development standpoint too, because I think if you could make a community that people are Googling to look for, like, hey, yeah, then you can draw people to this community by making it a little bit more walking and biking friendly. So I think it's a good thing overall on that. So I think we'll spend a fair amount of time on this last point with the League of American Bicyclists stuff. We started to get into that, I think, a little bit towards the end of the last meeting, and we had to adjourn. So we don't have a lot of updates from Terry. Normally this is, 15 or 20 things long because there's a lot of little things, but between these last two meetings, there hasn't been a ton, but I think let's go through those and then we can talk about the league stuff.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of kick off and follow the order there. Poppy Park, Phase 2, the construction of the Veterans Memorial has started, which impacts the cycling path over there, the mountain bike trail. So it's basically shut down entirely for hopefully not as long as they say, but the bridges aren't supposed to be there in place for 6 months. So 6 months, basically till the end of the year. So right now, working on, they're going to damage some more of the trail during the construction, and all that's going to be rebuilt. And so we're just waiting to get to a certain point where we can start, okay, this is the point where we can start planning on a rebuild. It's not going to be a full rebuild, but it'll probably be 50% of that trail is going to get rebuilt. And we'll try to make it, reroute it and try to make it where it does not interact with the Veterans Memorial as much as the original blueprints show. That was just they just kind of planted a trail in there. It's not really necessarily, the bike trail is not to scale. So we'll try to make sure that the cycle path isn't crossing, pedestrian pathways, people enjoying the Veterans Park.
Isn't a lot of that done?
Well, Phase 1 is probably 85% done. There's some paving and some other things that they're lacking. And so Phase 2 is all across the creek, building the infrastructure to put 2 bridges. There'll be like a circle that encompasses the whole park, and there'll be 2 bridges that cross over Tucker Creek there. So
Are they still shooting for beginning of May to open the?
So that's actually because the weather has been pushed back. That's my next point was Tucker Creek. The trail's still currently closed from just south of Gatling Park. And it's actually Gatling and not Gatlin. So
it's different things in different maps.
Yeah.
So.
well, it's recently been corrected.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly the whole time it's been Gatling.
Okay.
The sign was wrong for 15 years. So that will be open hopefully by the end of May. There is a construction project for Tucker Creek in Salem, and we're trying to make sure that both sections are not closed at the same time is the goal. That end of May, early June, Tucker Creek by Pompey Park is opened, and about the time that the construction will start at Tucker Creek in Salem, where they're putting in a tunnel, so you won't have to cross anymore. You actually cross under a tunnel under Salem, so. And we're still working on what that reroute is gonna look like for temporary use around that construction area.
So we have to close Salem to build
It will be, yeah. There'll be a period of time where Salem is closed,
it. Okay.
so.
For how big of stretch? Just from,
That part I don't know. They'll try to minimize it, but it's probably gonna be, probably a solid 2 months. I'd
Oh,
say,
wow,
yeah.
About when?
That's probably gonna start around June.
when school's out at least, I suppose that's
Yeah.
probably a little better.
So, so that's kind of, we talked about the bike trail.
Okay, that was Tucker Creek. Okay, I wasn't sure if
Okay,
this was
yeah.
the.
Oh, yeah, there is the bike trail. We're trying to finish the 3-mile trail out by the tech park, formerly HP. Everyone still kind of refers to it as HP. That's a 3-mile trail that has some drainage issues that we needed to stop raining and dry up.
I wrote it on
Yeah.
Saturday. I
Yeah.
thought it would be dry, and it mostly was, but yeah, there are a few sections.
Yeah, so we're having some ATV off-road activity that we're trying to get some signage made and
Okay.
stop that, because that's not helping keeping the grass and everything chewed up. So that, I was hoping to have it done by the end of April, but it's probably gonna be May, for that.
There's really neat sections of it for sure. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I tried to go on most of the whole thing. I think as I got around the corner at
Yeah,
3/4 of the way around, I started at the engineering firm, basically
Yeah.
right around there,
Craft
and
and
came
Tower.
around. And I think I got about 80% around before I lost my way a little
Yeah.
bit. So
yeah, there's a little section through the woods. It isn't opened up yet. but
Oh,
it'll
okay.
open up, yeah.
okay, I wasn't
So,
sure exactly. Any update from Kurt on the
Good
Herson
news, I just found out today, the lane, I have not had a chance to talk to you, but
Oh, okay.
the lane delineator, the city's approving the use of the lane blocks on Hairston.
Okay, awesome.
And so I'm gonna be discussing that more with all parties involved, the street department, everything on what
Okay.
that's gonna look like, who's installing,
Awesome.
ordering and all that stuff, so.
No, that's great. So just background on this for newer folks. So city, I guess it's fair to say, has wanted to do more protected bike lanes because the research is pretty good on them. I complained in part before I got on this board. Part of the reason why I got on this board was like, hey, can we get more protected bike lanes? One of the big reasons was street cleaners can't go over the posts, and so then you need narrow street cleaners, and it just becomes a little bit of a problem with the flexi post. And so I was just like, well, why don't we make something? And so I ended up prototyping a shape that we're going to try with
Yeah.
the city. So we'll see where it goes, but it does seem to be working
Yeah.
reasonably well. So that's great news.
Yeah, and it's got enough, those lane blocks have enough traction, like it's not like a wild and crazy idea, like I've talked to other communities that are interested in how this pilot goes. Because it's kind of a game changer for other communities, like we have this problem, other communities have the same problem. And like each of those bollards that you see on Donaghy are over $100. So more to come on that. And then that brings us to the League of American Bicyclists. I have a meeting coming up with Emily, who works for League of American Bicyclists and is actually the person in charge of reviewing the bike-friendly community ratings and all of that, and is gonna, I guess, talk me through it and help maximize the application as much as possible.
So we are bronze right now.
Correct. Yeah.
And we had some key steps to silver. AJ, from that
they're listed on
report.
the last report card, or whatever
Okay.
you call it.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah. They they had some bullet points that were,
that we need to try to hit to get there? And it's, let me see, did you have them handy? Let me see if I can pull them up here.
I didn't print them out and bring them with me.
Okay, let me see here. Do you have it handy? We can just text it to me so I don't have to go dig back. Yeah, I mean, I think it seems like, as I was kind of looking into this topic, it's like they make a big deal about when somebody gets silver or gold and like calls them out and like, hey, this is a big deal. And people that are Googling for walkable cities or bike, weirdos who Google cities to move to, I'm just kidding.
He's not looking at you.
But it does seem like it's a big opportunity, and like from my perspective, Terry, this seems like something where if we can get strategic and like, I don't want to say put some pressure on the city, but if it's an opportunity where, hey, how long does this last? Like this designation?
I believe it was 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so it's like it's like an Olympics, right? Like, for, to get into. So I think it is definitely worth having some additional discussion about those topics. You find it in AJ?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the URL.
Well,
Okay, no
If you
problem.
don't mind, while he's looking that up, I
Yeah.
was gonna back up a minute
Okay.
before we get, because I'll forget, we'll get so wrapped up in the bicycle friendly. So Lori kind of referenced Donnell Ridge being
Yep.
paved, that's gonna start next week. So that's a big deal. And the other thing is All Kids Bike, which is the elementary PE program that we last year put in Jim Stone and Carolyn Lewis. I've had some discussions and basically an email's gone out to the athletic director and all the elementary PE teachers offering the program.
What's it called again, Terry?
allkidsbike.org. And it is a program that teaches kids in elementary PE to ride bicycles, because we're in an ever-changing environment where less kids have the opportunity and access to that. They're on more electronic devices, and the sooner we can get them on bikes, then the more, empowered they are, all these other positive attributes that they have in their life. So hopefully we can roll that out across a bunch of elementary schools this year. It's kind of time sensitive because the pricing right now, the matching grants for 50%, the program costs $6,000. July 1st, it goes up to $9,000. And so if a school's got to raise $4,500, that's probably going to knock some schools out, but a lot of schools can come up with $3,000 pretty easy. And then we've got a matching grant to pick up the rest.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's really great. So it's Jim Stone and Ellen Smith that have done it?
Carolyn Lewis
Okay.
and Jim Stone have it now, and those were in place last year. And so now we're trying to get any school that's interested to apply. So
No, I think that's a really great thing. And, I think it'd be fun to try to at some point get some bike buses going on too. I think
that's the goal, is to get them riding and then eventually start getting them commuting to school and
yeah.
bike bus routes and different things. So.
Yeah, it's neat. One other thing, did you ever find it there, AJ?
It's in your email.
Oh, it is? Okay, awesome. Thank you. One thing that we talked about a while back, this goes back to last year, is just the hawk at Hairston and Donaghy.
Right.
Has there been any more discussion?
So
I know it was a sidewalk
we-
thing, but I felt like it's needed for the cyclists.
We talked about that, but there's a hawk currently at Salem and Tucker Creek
Yeah,
that we'll be able to repurpose. And
Okay.
So that'll be on the table to potentially repurpose there. I'm not guaranteeing that,
okay,
but I think that would be a great location for it.
okay.
We just have to talk more and look at some plans because there is no sidewalk there.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where basically you cross Donaghy, just to kind of get everybody in the loop on this one, but you cross Donaghy, it's really hard. That's part of Redden's route. So you're on Hairston trying to get to the trail, and Donaghy is just that Tyler and Donaghy isn't even a right angle. So people turn and just fly straight downhill, and families, kids or whatever, it's hard for them to accelerate across the street and feel comfortable. I've spent a couple of minutes just waiting for my family to be like, are you ready? And so it's just like one of these places where I think, and the schools are there too, so it essentially connects everything there to the school. So, and the sidewalk situation's weird because they can't come down on the sidewalk, so it just ends up being you kind of like the route is there, but it gets stranded. So
You currently just play Frogger, if anyone's familiar with that thing.
you age yourself a little bit, Terry, but let me just open this Google Docs here. Okay, here. So I'll throw this into the notes here actually too. Oh my goodness, what did I do? Oh, that's unformatted text. I'm sorry, guys. I need to make you look at that. Okay, so let's just walk through this individual. We've got a little bit of time here, so we can spend some time on it. So we are bronze. This is fall of 2019. So yes, 4 years ago. We have one bicycle friendly business. I'm not sure what it is.
Surely it's
The ride. It's got to be the ride.
It has to be.
It's the bike shop, guys. We have 2 local bicycle friendly universities. That's good, right? 2 of 3 is pretty good. Our high speed roads with bike facilities. I don't know how this is defined. Our total bicycle network mileage to total road network mileage. We're at 17% here. The average for silver is 48. So obviously these are really big things. Transportation budget spent on cycling. Ours is low. Bicycle education in schools needs to be improved. So we've got some things that we could do better on here for sure. We do have a bike plan. We have good bike laws. We have a bike advisory committee that's meeting twice as often as we have to. So that's good. Okay, so this is bike program staff to population. So is this you, Terry? This presumably gets better?
I think before they were giving credit to, whoever, trying to think of who it was, Levi or somebody that was working on other projects, but they allocated
A portion of
time,
them.
but that's realistic for that, so.
So we have some work to do to become silver, I guess, is the thing. So you're going to meet with Emily.
Yeah,
To talk through.
I'm meeting with them and I'm gonna find out kind of the parameters on what each of those categories, how it rolls up. So
Okay.
that as we complete the application, that we're maximizing everything we can. Cause I feel like we're much higher than 3% now. So I think some of those that we've improved pretty significantly since 2019, and then others maybe are.
Yeah, this seems low.
Yeah.
And I also don't know what counts as a
Well,
bicycle
that's like
network.
one of my questions there is what counts as bicycle network?
Yeah.
Because we've added 7 or 8 miles of multi-use trail.
Yeah.
So that would impact that significantly if that can be counted.
Yeah.
In
This
addition, in
obviously.
addition to some more bike lanes and protected bike lanes.
Yeah, no, that seems to make a difference. I mean, I think one thing I think it would be worth looking at. I mean, like to me, this just seems as a sort of a once in every 4 year kind of leverage point, like to really kind of evaluate. Like if we are silver, it's probably a pretty big deal. I would say because we can advertise it, we can market it. The chamber can do what they do with it, and talk about it. And I mean, I think it's a big deal.
One thing I want to point out, like some data that's possibly data error, is like the safety crashes per 10K, and Conway's rated 1,000. Like that's inaccurate.
Good, 'cause that's pretty scary looking.
Yeah, that's,
So it was actually accurate based on how they were calculating it, but the way they calculated it was interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, we looked into it a little bit more and I'd have to review.
yeah.
Yeah,
Peter asked about it and had the demo.
yeah, just in principle, this doesn't really make sense that this is like
Um,
1% here and 0% on fatalities. Like that's a sort of a weird
Yeah,
anomaly.
The 0.3 makes it seem like that the same people are getting hurt a lot because only 0.3% of people.
Yeah.
Right.
well, and the one thing
We need a different 0.3%, I think is our problem.
the one thing that Conway's really good at is having, Conway's really strong, and I've dealt with this with like People for Bikes has a very similar survey to League of American Cyclists. And we're really strong with cycling enthusiasts,
Right.
but getting people to actually buy in and commute to work is like, we've got a lot of work to do there. So, and I think some of that is if we start to focus on bicycle-friendly businesses that allow their employees or incentivize, most of the communities I talk to that are doing really well in that,
Mhm.
the employees are incentivized in some way to commute to work.
Yeah, I mean, Walmart's got a whole like person that's really like going to be doing it full time, like trying to get people to ride to work, working with Bentonville, like trying to kind of create inroads to do that. So it does seem like, I think that is an important part. I think honestly, the infrastructure matters though, too. I mean, we've
Well,
got good
that's where I
bike
think,
lanes.
like, not just use an example. So like, say we took the money instead of paving Donnell, like what if we took the money and
That's your
invested it in protected bike lanes all around the city?
Yeah.
That would greatly enhance that.
For commuters, less
For
so for
commuters,
recreational
yeah,
riders. So yeah, it is a pretty beat up road. But no, it's a fair point, right? I mean, like,
Well-
infrastructure's expensive.
I think is one thing on here how much the city puts into, how much city money goes towards bicycle infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is
There is a
Low.
budget, share of transportation budget spent on cycling.
Right, but it's fairly low compared to other cities who are.
Do we get the credit for the trail project
No,
for
because
that?
that's not city funds. That's
Oh,
grant money.
It's federal and it's still in planning. I think if we had a phase of it or something completed at this point, we could add it, but.
So back on the safety thing, the crashes you were talking about, is the reason it's so high because we have a low number of commuters? We don't have 10,000
Yeah.
commuters, so it's extrapolating what we do
Yeah.
have?
So basically, the few bike commuters that do commute get into an unreasonably high number of accidents is basically what's going on.
Like one person crashes, it's gonna cause
Yeah,
that to
so
the model to-
when it scales,
The end of 2021, we had 2 fatalities that were just outside city limits, so those, I don't think they'll count in the Conway data, because they weren't city limits, but that's just an example, like low number of commuters and within a 30-day period. Unfortunately, 2 people lost their lives. But looking into those accidents, they didn't have lights. Lights or helmets, riding the wrong direction in the dark.
Now, I find
It's
that
bad.
that's just a general, and I don't know if there's anything that, you talk about, I think like talking to people, I see so many people, and it's almost always people that look like they're struggling in some way, just riding on a bike that's probably not in that great a shape, the wrong way, like treating themselves like a pedestrian. And I think they think it's the right thing to do, right? But it's so dangerous to be on a bike going the wrong direction. There were a lot of fatalities in Tampa that way, where just people, a lot of times people who had DUIs, so they had to ride bikes or other problems, and they would just be, basically doubling the speed in a head-on collision with a car. But I don't know what, some PSA stuff for when to ride.
That's the tough part, like my experience. So around that time, we activated like with CAB, and CAB provided I think 25 lights.
Yeah.
And I went around and visited, that was whenever we had the warming shelter at the Don Owens. And I went out there and I talked to them and we gave out those lights. And then 2 weeks later, I went back and none of those folks had lights on their bikes. I don't know
What they did with the
what
lights.
they did with them, but
Yeah.
and they were, trying to make them where they're rechargeable. They didn't have to buy batteries, but yeah, the lights all disappeared. So
Yeah.
like we're
No, it's a tricky thing. It's almost you need like a sign that faces the opposite way of traffic that's just like, don't ride your bike this way, like on the backside of speed limit signs or something, like a sticker that like, no, please don't, like, because it's just so much more dangerous, right? But we could do like a vector lesson in physics. I don't know. We got to do something there, but it does seem like it's a problem. So it does seem like there's some data issues here. So when do we have to be done by?
August is the
deadline. Okay, so we have.
I meet with Emily next week, and then I'm happy to share a breakdown, whatever I can, maybe some bullet points or something with you, and then you can share them with.
Yeah, that would be great, because I do think if there's some things that we can do, the thought that comes to mind on the bicycle network mileage, I mean, the call it bike friendly streets thing that AJ and I worked on, I think that's 60 miles of streets. So if we could designate them and plug them up into Google Maps, like I'm just trying to think of things that we could do quickly. Obviously we can't like build 60 miles of, protected bike lanes or anything else like that. But if we could designate those streets as, bike friendly streets or bike and pedestrian friendly streets, and then upload those to Google Maps, like that's something we could do in a week, right?
Yeah.
From a technical standpoint.
That's where
Can we
a good
get those
question.
things,
That's
so.
like some of the parameters that I need to see if that even will what that means, like what the parameters are.
So again,
Do they have to be like marked, designated bike lanes, similar with paint on the ground, or can we use like your bicycle Green Street master plan and designate routes and put it in the master plan? And
so just for background for those, so AJ and I, this is sort of pandemic work probably as much as anything else, like things where, when you're sitting around and not doing stuff, starting to look at like streets that like, for me, I was riding down Harrison with my family and we got buzzed over the bike lane. That's kind of what got my dander up about like protected bike lanes. But then like we didn't want to feel trapped. That was like right here. And so we would come in, we live over by Hendricks. And so we kind of came in under Hendricks, popped down here and then rode on Independence. And so we cut down here in Independence and it turns out like that's pretty good. And so we started riding around on neighborhood streets and, then we're like, oh, actually, if we can take, we can take Clifton down or we can take Markham to Mill and then you take Mill to Mitchell. And Mitchell, you can basically just like drag all the way to UCA and then you can cut over here and you're basically in UCA. And so there's like all these little backways that nobody's really aware of, that the idea has been, could we designate these? Not necessarily by like painting them entirely green, but maybe we come up some stickers to put down or some signage or just paint the curbs. Or one thing that Google allows is the city can actually upload files to Google to say these are designated bike routes, so that when you ask your phone, hey, navigate, that it would take you on these and treat them as if they were bike trails. But like I've taken my family out on these and you can cruise on Mitchell basically in the middle of the street with kids and like cars do come occasionally, but they're not flying. And so it's actually a pretty safe place to ride. Like my wife was like, we should do this more often. Like this is really fun. And, I added up.
how much work have you done on the east side of 40? Can you scroll over or is that?
Yeah, it's not as much here, although, some of these are pretty fast streets and there's not as much residential here, but yeah, I did come up with some stuff over here to try to tap in. The reality is there's more of these streets that are this way, so it's just really trying to identify the ones that would cut through. But I mean, these are where the schools are, I think. Yeah, this is like Simon and these, and you can cut all the way from over here to here. The big issue is you do kind of need like crossings in more places. So I've got, a crossing here. I think there might be one, kind of a crossing here to get here. There's some areas where there's potential room for trails back on Gold Creek, I think. But I haven't done as much on the east side of 40. We did a fair amount. AJ and I spent some time on this. The other thing is here you can do these things that we're just kind of calling connectors. Like there's areas here, particularly on the south side of Oak Street, that would help connect this immensely. And in some of these areas, if you look at say, let's hide this layer. Every time it's just a festival of maps with me. I apologize, guys. So it's but if you look at this and you zoom way in, you can actually see that like pedestrians are using these paths and people are using these things to get around, but they're not really designated in any way. So like to me, these could be cinder for all I care. Like I think some of these connectors don't need to be like massive infrastructure projects. It could be like, $2,000 of crushed gravel that just says, oh yes, hey, this is a route, and then maybe a sign at either end. But, this whole area back here, I think really could, particularly as all of the new development comes in here, like people are going to want to get around and be able to get there easily and ride bikes around. And Oak is still pretty dangerous, I think, for cyclists. But yeah, this is just an idea that I had about, if this counts, right, then we could do this for not very much money in a pretty short amount of time, and it's 60 miles of trails, right, which is pretty significant, I think, relative to that. Now, my personal thing is I'd also like to make all of these streets okay for golf carts. I think that would make the city a better place, because I think, I'd rather give my kid a golf cart than a car, but it's a topic for the golf cart committee, which has up to this point has not been created. So, but yeah, that would be my thought is, can we get some juice quickly from something like this? Because this would get us 60 miles, like, not overnight, but close to overnight. It also looks like the businesses, this is something that Peter talked a lot about, is the bike-friendly businesses. I think let's find out how important it is and how many we need, and probably work with CAB to do some sort of, I don't know,
Awareness.
push.
It was just,
Hey, we're looking for X numbers of businesses, and maybe CAB could start a ride from each one of them as a like an incentive or something along those lines to make a push for bike-friendly businesses. It seems like, I don't know, it seems like we're underscored here, to be honest with you, but I think we really need to make it a priority to get to silver, because it would be a big deal for the community, I think. And it's an opportunity to kind of accelerate some change here, with a one-time opportunity.
It seemed like the discussion that we had before was that there was some low-hanging fruit there. If it was that a lot of businesses would qualify if they just knew that they
If they just knew how to
needed
apply.
a thing or two, and
Yeah.
But Terry, is this something that you have to fill out an application for?
Yeah.
I'm assuming, so.
Yeah.
So do they give you some of the,
For the business,
what's that?
the businesses?
No, this report card, this
Oh.
application to be silver or bronze or gold,
Yeah,
wherever
some
you
other thing.
try to take that to something, I guess you have to work through to fill out.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess then on that, they'll give you the data as what constitutes a high-speed road.
Yeah, that's some of the questions that I have that I want to get answered, is like some of the metrics of what defines that. I'm sure they've got it, but the one thing with the contact that I have, it's all out there, but is just talking through it and figuring out how to maximize it. Like,
Yeah, it's
I'm
like
sure there's a lot of gray, like,
You would think there probably would be.
yeah, I think there's a lot of gray areas that just maximizing some of the gray areas would help, and then making sure the data is accurate on some other things.
Yeah, that
Like
seems to me.
how do they know how many commuters we have? Like that's questions I have, like how do you know how many commuters we have?
Yeah, what's,
So
So for perspective, do we have examples of like silver level cities in the state to look at?
Yeah.
What are some examples of?
Fayetteville is an example of I
They're
believe
silver?
I believe they're silver.
Or no, Bentonville's.
Or maybe it's Bentonville silver and Fayetteville's gold, I think.
Okay.
Because it's reversed from what you would think, because all you hear about is Bentonville.
Bentonville's road cycling, it's not.
No, they're
They've done a lot.
You got the university there.
yeah.
Yeah, Bentonville's coming up the curve, I think, pretty fast,
Yeah.
but it is
Oh, they're
still.
gonna get there, there's no doubt.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think the thing I keep coming back to with Conway is just that we have a grid that is much friendlier to cycling in general than either Bentonville or Fayetteville does. Like, to me, that's where this, like, the whole idea of these streets things came from, because it's like, if you just know where to ride, like, and you have like a reasonably comfortable bike, you can get around Conway pretty well without having to ride on Prince or College, or there's all kinds of back ways, cutting through Smoking Oaks, and there's not that many places where you have to go way out of your way. But to me, we just need to kind of claim those as bike infrastructure because they are safe streets, and we don't have a lot of the big stroads and things like Bentonville has, like, Walton Boulevard or whatever. And it's just like, it's got a lot of places where it's like, I don't really feel that comfortable riding. They've got a great greenway, that's great. But it's like, if I want to go from here to here, it's perfect. But anywhere else,
from an actual bike lane perspective, Bentonville's actually behind us as far as road cycling infrastructure. What they do have is an amazing, greenway, the Razorback Greenway and all that, which we'll have soon with the Connect Conway. But they're just getting on that bus. Fayetteville is well ahead. And the one thing that I noticed whenever I ride in Fayetteville, so for example, I ride down Tyler a lot. And it's, even though it's 35, people go 45. And so it ends up being a pretty high speed road, but that's what I use. But in Fayetteville, they don't use those roads. Like in the bikes use the city roads, kind of like your green streets. Yeah. And where the roads are much narrower, the cars do, and the bikes can actually go the speed limit of the cars, and it ends up working pretty well.
They would use a street like Mitchell, like what Jeremy was saying.
Yeah, like they're using like a residential street, and you're traveling down that, and the streets are narrow, older streets, and much narrow, and so the cars, they can't do faster than 20 miles an hour. They're gonna,
one thing that worked well, we had a little bit of a I don't want to say a scrape, but people were parking on both sides of the road, kind of anywhere they wanted on Reynolds Avenue in the village where I live. And then at some point, somebody brought up that, hey, that's actually not supposed to be two sides. You're only supposed to be parking on one side of the street. And then the city just came and just like painted an entire curb, just the brightest red imaginable, right? And so, some people were like, well, maybe that's a little bright. And so, we sort of worked out a compromise where we set the parking spots alternating like a zipper, so that the parking spots are like, you've got some on this side and then you've got some on this side, but they're not across from each other. And that's been a really interesting thing because it didn't cost much. And then we painted over the red with gray, so it just looked like a curb. But it worked out. It was awesome because the city just stepped up and kind of helped find a solution, and it was great. But it did two things. Like it was just a good solution for the people that parked, because you could always kind of park on a side close to your house. But two, it's just there's almost always cars on either side of the street, which like makes it seem less like a drag strip, And so I think with some of these streets, another thing that AJ and I have talked about is like bike boulevards. It's like, hey, let's do that, because what it does is essentially like forces all the traffic into the middle, which forces people to kind of have to make decisions about, oh, well, I can't just fly because I'm in the middle of the road. And so I think there's some low cost stuff that we can do to do it. I think what Bentonville does have is a big critical mass of riders, and a lot of people that care about bikes, even if they don't like do a ton. So
Yeah.
I think that's another thing.
One of the
We gotta
things,
do.
and I brought it up before, that what they struggle with is they have so much off-road and greenway infrastructure that whenever cyclists are on the road, the motorists are upset.
Yeah.
And that's a problem that we could have if we're not careful in Conway, whenever the Connect Conway greenways get installed, that people are just automatically
You should be over there.
gonna expect you to utilize the greenway, but it's gonna be flooded with pedestrians and
Yeah, it's
it's not.
a lot of talk in Bella Vista. I have the misfortune of being on a Bella Vista Facebook group. You don't want a part of this thing,
Yes.
but all the time there's just these like, I nearly killed a cyclist again. Why are they on these roads? And it's like, why are your housing values doubling right now? Like, you decide which one, right? Like, and they're like, well, I know it's legal, but it doesn't make it right. It's like, now it is a little terrifying. Those are terrifying blind corners and stuff,
Yeah.
but it is a little funny. Sorry if anybody from Bella Vista is watching. So, yeah, I think this seems like we really need to, I think, make this priority over the next like 2 or 3 meetings, like to kind of hit these things, make these a priority, and like tag team, whether it's businesses or uploading things or anything else we can do to kind of improve our rankings here. I think it would be a big deal, and we won't have the opportunity again until after the U.S. hosts the World Cup, or maybe even after we host the Olympics. I'm not sure. So, but it's a while anyway. Anybody ever have any comments or thoughts on that? AJ, have you spent any time with this document?
No, I just found it.
Okay.
And that I noticed that's states, that's not communities. It might be different.
Okay.
For some time, Terry, if you get into this in the next month, it sounds like we've got to have something done by August on this. If there's a piece of this, you need some help with splitting up or something, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say as soon as you get it, I'll distribute the thing to everybody here, just so that if there's things that we need to jump on between now and the next meeting, that we can do it. Because I do think you're probably right, Lori, that there's businesses that would qualify for this, and we might have 50 bike-friendly businesses with, oh, hey, if we put a bike rack out front, or if we, did X or Y, we got some
I think some of it's just having them apply to be
bike-friendly business.
bike-friendly business and having a document that says they're, I mean, I'm sure there's some parameters, but a lot of it is just they never apply, and so you don't get credit.
Yeah. Well, I think hi-ho silver is kind of what we need to do here. Let's just look through here. Bicycle safety education. Does this count for the bike program, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I know Peter and I think AJ, they've done some bike school, bike rodeos and different things, so.
I mean, does the kids, the bike program that you were talking about, the school one?
Well, I think the PE programs that are going into the elementary schools, I think, are going to qualify in that area. The NICA programming may or may not.
Yeah, I think the areas around schools is another.
Yeah.
That is an area where I think, from a pedestrian standpoint, I think is an important thing that we probably just need to, like, I don't know. I'm always hesitant to set up subcommittees. AJ, you love subcommittees. I'm always hesitant about it, but I do think that's something in addition to the bike stuff that, like, there are all kinds of, like, what I would call like crucible points for schools. Like, my kids go to Simon, and there's an area you just see kids walking without a sidewalk right as all this traffic's coming in to do pickup, and it's like kids are just walking on like the side of a hill, and it's just like, there's probably 6 or 8 points to me that would be, and we talked about this a little bit last year, of getting crossings in a few areas, but to me, we should probably identify, Caitlin, can you add this just to make, so we got it as a note? I think we do need to add, just brainstorm, and maybe we can do this by email, of spots that are helping schools. Like, this issue is something we can probably do to try to improve it and crowdsource some knowledge about, tough areas around schools that because I think that seems like just a really reasonable thing to do, so. Trip reduction ordinance, guaranteed to high ride home. Will our public transit help us at all with this?
This, like I said, just learning what qualifies for that.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess let us know what you get, Terry, on that, and we can kind of hit these things and try to, I guess, make those priorities over the next 3 to 4 months, but try to make some stuff happen here. So now that we're 11 strong, I feel like, we can link arms and, march around a little bit.
It's a
So
lot of brain power.
it's a lot of power. It is. So, anybody else have anything else to cover on this? I can distribute these afterwards to everybody. So you've got light nighttime reading, that sort of thing. Any other business to cover? Good. Save ourselves 5 minutes here if we have a motion to adjourn. All right, second?
Second.
All right.